Good day, my name is Christel from Frans, Klerk, Independent Technical Analysts. I want to kick off this week's show with the gold price in dollars. We've previously spoken about that beautiful inverse head and shoulder formation, and we can see that this week's spinning candle, as well as last week's spinning candle, confirmed the indecision. The neckline was confirmed there when the instrument changed $1,320 into a support. But we've previously mentioned that 1,357 is a very strong resistance on this instrument. And technically, it needs to find more buyers in order to take it to higher levels. We know that the target of this inverse head and shoulder formation can take it as high as $1,460. And if this full formation play out, it can take us, let's see, $1,465. But we know that the instrument is not just going to rise in one line. It's going to maybe rally a little bit, give a little pull back, and then rally some more. However, it is overbought on the stochastic indicator, but both these averages are still pointing upwards, which confirms that the momentum to the top is clearly still in place. The 40-week moving average is also a beautiful support, which confirms that the long-term sentiment towards the gold price in dollars is positive at the moment. The question might be, when will the optimism around this formation become obsolete? And that is sitting at this right shoulder of the inverse head and shoulder formation. And we can see that that is very closely to that 40-week moving average. So technically, when $1,269 changes into a resistance on a Friday close, because this is a weekly graph, my possible optimism would be wiped off the table and we might see more downside then. But at the moment, we can see the indecision. This gold price needs more buyers to lift it above the $1,357. We cannot look at gold and not look at our local Sibanye still water. And we've previously mentioned that this beautiful, also inverse head and shoulder formation is still on the table. And that's already started to develop around August 2017. And that long head, and now it might be building on a possible right shoulder. And I'm saying possible because this formation will only be confirmed when that neckline that I've drawn in here changes into a support. And that neckline is waiting there around 16 Rand 88. When that level changes into a support, the optimism of this formation will be confirmed and we can assume that it might play out to higher levels. My stochastic is here in no man's land. Is sitting here at a 53. But what is a bit of a concern is that this blue average, the shorter one, looks as if it wants to lose momentum. And that is a bit of a concern. I've got a bearish engulfing candle, and this spinning candle here tells me a little bit of indecision. The investors are not sure what they want to do with this share. But my long-term moving average is still a support. That 40-week average is a beautiful support. And the share needs to find more buyers to take it back to that neckline and possibly even higher. Again, like in the gold price example, the right shoulder of the Sibanye is waiting there very close to the 40-week moving average. And that is around 11 Rand 30. If that level changes into a resistance on a Friday close, the optimism around this formation would become obsolete and be wiped off the table. So a strong level to watch is 1133 on a weekly close. If you want a little bit of a higher level, you can use the 40-week moving average. That is waiting at 12 Rand 20, and then obviously that neckline, which would confirm the optimism. Elway wanted us to look at Allied Electronics, ticker AEL, on our local exchange. Some of the investors might know them as Eltron. And we can see that this share has given a massive rally to the upside. But at the moment, there is resistance. For the last almost 5 weeks, the share could not find enough buyers to lift it above that 25 Rand 46 and even 25 Rand 11. And that is a little bit of a concern. My stochastic indicator is also overbought, but I don't really have a divergence yet to the downside. But this week's bullish engulfing candle are implying that maybe the share has found enough buyers to take it to higher levels. My first warning on this weekly graph will only be when the low there of 23 Rand 90 changes into a resistance again. Then I might say there's a loss of momentum, and even when we have lower highs, we can say the share is losing steam and the selling pressure is fierce. If you want to buy it, you are definitely too late. I would rather suggest waiting or looking for another share, Sheldon. At the moment, the momentum to the top is in place. It's also what is a little bit of a concern is the fact that the share has run so far away from its 40-week moving average. And that sometimes implies that the share has run too quickly, too far into a direction. And sometimes a share just manages to pull back a little bit and bring it more in line with the 40-week moving average. Sandile wanted us to look at DRD gold, also on our local exchange. And we can see that the investors are keen on the gold stocks because they've treated them so well over the last couple of weeks. And that 40-week moving average on DRD was beautifully changed into a support last week. And we can see the share has found some resistance there around 4 Rand 40. So this share needs to find enough buyers to take it to the next strong resistance at around 5 Rand 31. The 40-week moving average on DRD is the line in the sand. Only when the share starts to consolidate below 3 Rand 13 on a Friday close would I assume that the long-term sentiment towards this share has changed to negative. Yes, it is a little bit in overbought territory on my blue line, the shorter moving average, but there's still some space there on my longer moving average. But most importantly, they're both still pointing upwards. And that tells me that the momentum to the top is in place. And I can see that in my candles as well. A little bit of a spinning candle here, if I can highlight that or zoom that out for our viewers. A spinning candle which tells us indecision. It tells us that the buyers and sellers are looking each other in the eye and they are trying to figure out who is going to win this battle. I think the momentum is beautifully in place. My first concern would be only when the share starts to consolidate below 3 Rand 76 on a Friday close. But at the moment, Sandile, this graph looks beautiful and healthy to the upside. I'm trying to see if there is a window on the weekly graph on DRD, and maybe let's see if we've got one there. The high there is 10 Rand 98 and the low is 10 Rand 62. Yes, what a beautiful window that is waiting on a weekly graph. And that is a strong level, and that is a very strong target, especially windows on weekly graph. And windows, we know in technical analysis, always gets closed, but it can take weeks, months, or decades. But there is a window, Zandile, that maybe if you're a long-term investor, can have that as a target in time to come. Kumba is a share that I know have given many investors gray hair and have taught them a lot of patience. And we've previously mentioned that there is a beautiful bullish flag formation, and that bullish flag played out beautifully to the top. But these two upper shadows implies that the sellers are in line and that they have started to bank profit on the share. This spinning candle and this maybe a shooting star candle with that long upper shadow tells me that the selling pressure are in line, and maybe some of them want to take some profit. Only when the share starts to consolidate above 504 Rand and 50 cents, which is the high of last week's candle, will I assume that the momentum to the top will continue again and investors will start to accumulate the share. Normally, when we've seen such a pullback and a rally, we can maybe even see another bullish flag formation with a little bit of a retracement and even then higher levels. But at the moment, my share is overbought. I can see that there's selling pressure. So if you are a long-term investor, I would maybe wait for a lower high or even some loss of momentum confirmation on my candles. If I take this bullish flag out and we can maybe see more downside, we might even have a possible double top there in Kumba. But that will only be confirmed there when the share starts to consolidate below 421 Rand 69. So Kumba needs to find some buying pressure to lift the share to higher levels. Otherwise, these shares and these shadows are telling me that we might see a loss of momentum. My stochastic, the two averages on my stochastic, the blue line and the red line, they haven't crossed one another to the downside yet, which tells me that there is not enough selling pressure yet. When that blue line starts to break through my red line, that's when I might, like it did in this case, that's when I might be a little bit more concerned and I will have confirmation that, hey, The selling pressure is fierce. If I want to take my profits, I need to do it sooner rather than later. I continue to discuss Amazon, listed on the Nasdaq in the US, because it is sometimes beautiful to just see how a share develops over time and how technical analysis and support and resistance levels are so crucial to highlight where the buyers found a support and the buyers are prepared to pay more for the share, and where the sellers were stronger and started to sell their share for lower levels. And we've previously mentioned that these highs there around $2,051 that was developed in September 2018 hasn't been reached yet. And we can see a high was reached in April 2019 there around $1,963. But ever since this share, even this week, the high of the share is only $1,921. And that just implies a little bit of a loss of momentum, that buyers are not keen to nibble on the share and buy again. And that is a little bit of a concern. We can see that the 40-week moving average, this red line, has basically just went sideways since the October 2018. It basically just went sideways, which is also an indication that there's really not enough power to take this share to higher levels. Only when this $1,961 changes into a support again will I be a little bit more optimistic about the share. My stochastic is a no man's land, is sitting here on a 70, and we only consider a share overbought on a stochastic indicator when it starts to trade above an 80. So although there's still a little bit of room to the upside, my candles are telling me, with these small shadows at the top, are telling me that there is a little bit of selling pressure and I need to be careful. Often when shares have rallied so beautifully and they're in the news with all the fantastic new developments and financial results, new investors would want to buy the share because all the news around it looks fantastic. But that's sometimes just the worst place to get in. Remember, if there's somebody out there that wants to sell their stock, there needs to be somebody to buy it. Otherwise, you won't have a trade. And that is very important to remember when you start to accumulate shares or start to invest on the stock market. Make sure that you're buying something that's coming from a lower base, making higher lows, and maybe reconsider if you're thinking about buying Amazon at this stage.